CJ here. Just wanted to make a quick storyboard video for some of the weekend warriors who I've been in touch with. So this will be basically a bulk reply. I'll cover some territory, try to give some helpful insight for people that are involved with cross-border selling of VIP SEO marketing services and products. I'll also talk about a black hat method which has been killed by high visibility. I'll talk about that in detail because I think it's important for people to understand why people that have income producing systems that work don't unpack their goodies in full in a clonable way that can actually be abused quite easily. So if you are selling media products and services, a lot of the people that I interact with are people that are transitioning from field sales into remote digital sales, which is a great thing, I think, anyway, all the time. Given the post-pandemic era that we live in, it's digital first. There is no toll that you have to pay. If you can send an email locally to sell a media product or service, you can sell it anywhere on the planet, so long as you target your opportunity the right way, which is what my threads have pretty much focused on. The world is your oyster, okay? That's why I had this illustration created, just to give you a sense that stop thinking strictly in local terms. You will never be able to maximize profit opportunities if you are not involved within the global economy especially at the VIP SEO practitioner level. Okay, so keep that in mind. Step beyond local. This is a diagram that I put up not so long ago. It's basically 7 elements of what a 6-digit client engagement should look like in terms of statements of work. This is not in any this is not in sequence. This is just a random idea that you should have. I could have made this 15 pods or contact points. I could have made it 20, but I just limited this to 7 just to give you a clear sense of what is possible and with a summary for each pod. Okay, so you do what you understand how to do, but if you want to know, if you want a clear view of what a 6 or 7 digit client engagement looks like with a high income professional, there you have it. There it is. Okay. Moving along. This is for people who, again, if you are transitioning from remote sales, or to remote sales from field sales, I pulled this from my archive from my other company, and it's just a mechanical illustration that I had created to just give you a sense of what it takes to, in a formulaic sense or a framework sense. You could use Skype or your favorite voice over IP system. It's not rocket science. Just make sure your emails are customized and targeted. Again, targeted email, not spam, because targeted email is your jet fuel. Okay, keep that in mind. You need to do that. Client caliber, I redundantly communicate about client caliber because if you have a low client caliber, you will not have high income. Okay, that's just an easy way to look at it. It's basically the principle of less being more. So keep that in mind. Your upskill, your know-how, that's what the forum is for. This is a gold mine of opportunity and learning, and you have to bring your own skill as well as your background, your past, your research ability in order to approximate your own workable technique. Okay, but once you figure this out, the world is your oyster again, because once you understand the frameworks, it doesn't matter where you're selling. As long as you have a properly aligned media product or service that has value to your target prospect, you can sell anywhere in the world. That's why I have this here as number 5. Okay, it's a very global opportunity without having to leave home. So that's a clear way to think about it. Now here's a bit of a nugget that I will throw out to anyone who is serious about, if you're serious about avoiding failure and you are very interested in cross-border selling, I will give you this tip. Years ago, before I unbossed myself from corporate media, I was actually a brand sales director for a branded media company. And when I started selling remotely in territories that were abroad, One of my favorite places to sell was actually London, the UK as a territory, London in particular as a region. And that's because whenever I called people, when we were calling business to business, when we were selling, cross-border selling with businesses, other businesses that we were contacting, whenever you contacted the gatekeeper, as soon as they heard your accent, it was really a nice disarming effect. It had a very disarming impact. Everyone was happy. Oftentimes you made the gatekeeper's day just by having an accent. Okay? Again, we're talking little things. This is not a big deal in a tactical or an operational sense. You just have to have an accent. Okay, that's different from the target region that you're calling. Given that it was an American accent, our teams were always having high performance. Now, I'll say this also. When I first piloted London as a territory, I made the offer to a little over 100 people at the time, but less than 15 people actually took the offer because in order to do that, you had to wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning because East Coast USA time is 5 hours behind the UK, and a lot of people did not want to do that, okay? It was just not something, but mechanically, it's not like it required that much of a mental overhaul or any sort of magic. It's just managing your sleep schedule on a different basis. Now, does this mean that if you have an accent that is not an American accent or a Canadian accent that you cannot sell? That is not the case. That's not the point I'm trying to make. This works in reverse because I also hired people from London to contact American businesses for the exact same reverse reason, okay? So, what I mean by that is American business people that are on the receiving end of phone calls from people from with British heavy UK accents, that what you've done instantly, if you've seized attention from the gatekeeper, you've prioritized your contact because the first thing the gatekeeper is going to say is, hey, there's this guy from London or from the UK that's trying to, talk to us. So already you've elevated that level of priority. And make no mistake that whenever you're doing any sort of selling, whether it's cold selling or emails that are targeted, but then you're following up those emails with a strategic phone call, you are fighting for attention span all the time. So this little edge that you have with your language or with your accent is a critical component to your success. When I started my own agency, after I unbossed myself, I started my own agency in London for the exact reason that I'm explaining to you now. Okay, so it works. It is a transnational system. You can apply this at any time, but the reality is oftentimes when I was in London, I gave the impression that I was abroad just because it was remote selling I was conducting anyway. It didn't really matter. Though I was physically in London, the people that I was calling didn't know that. They thought oftentimes that I was actually calling from abroad, which prioritized, again, the importance of the call, which gave me higher attention span and opportunities to sell. Now, I'll say this also, just to make you understand that this is not limited to Americans and their accents. I hired people from London, as I said, to call American business as well as Canadian businesses also. But I also did the same thing with other EU territories. For example, I would hire Spaniards to call Spanish markets in South America. Why? Because a Spanish accent calling a company in Colombia or calling a company in Venezuela or calling a company in Mexico, instant credibility, instant prioritization, instant attention span, grip, and these things are what you need when you're doing cross-border selling. So keep this in mind. It's not just an American thing. It's just an accent arbitrage thing. If you have a valuable product or service and you are calling from a top-level company or country, and you have sharp salespeople that are making these calls for luxury media products and services, you will sell. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, winding this up, I always circle back to client caliber because if you have a low client caliber, you're going to have low income, and that's not the goal. I pulled this from one of my master classes, and Basically, HIP simply means high income professional. So that's what that's all about, in case you're wondering. Now, I will transition now to my private and confidential information. Not that big of a deal. I just wanted to emphasize something. Now, in my other company, I deal with business media entrepreneurs who are experienced. Not most of the people are just looking to open up new sales channels in areas that they've not had products or services sold in, or just areas of business that they have not specialized in. That's where they come to me for in that sense. We actually prospect directly to these people. And because we cherry pick, I'm a prospector. And that's a big difference from a lot of the people that rely strictly on SEO or inbound leads for sales. I'm such a targeted, and that's because in my background, that's what I started off as a prospector. Now, I've talked to many people in my other operation, and I always soft probe this topic. And not once have I had a person who even understood that you could actually buy your way onto the New York Times bestsellers list. They never knew that, okay? So, this is a black hat operation. I call it gray hat, but the company had to go underground because Forbes outed them with their business operations. Now, I'll get into this on the next screen in more detail. Now, what were they doing that was so risque? This company specialized in getting books onto bestseller lists. Now, how do they do that? Clients willing to pay enough, it will even guarantee the #1 spot. Now, for those that might have missed the distinction, there's a distinction between being on the bestsellers list versus the #1 spot. That is the most coveted position. Now, how do we do that? This is the black hatters, okay? For all the black hatters out there, okay? This is your zone. They achieve this by defeating safeguards that are supposed to make it impossible to buy bestseller status. And it's not cheap. Now, I say that it's not cheap. I want to emphasize something. I receive messages from people who are having impossible outcomes, meaning they're not making money, and they're trying to sell low-ticket products, $200, $300, $400, sometimes $500 per month packages. Really low. That's fine, especially if you're just starting out. But one of the reasons why I made this video was to give you a better sense of what the possibilities are, because everything that I discuss within my threads or strictly for client acquisition with an aim of dealing with clients with at least $100,000 of investable assets for media spend. So if you're targeting people with a minimum of $100,000 in investable assets, these are the types of people that you're looking for, okay? Rest in peace, Tony, by the way. But this is a person who had he had multiple bestseller designations. Why? Because he cut a check, okay? And I talked previously also about making sure that your client is your product, sort of a bit of a mental shift for many people, because when you do that the right way, this is what you get in return from your happy client. Now, again, these are apex business people. Now, do you think a guy like this is going to balk if he is presented with an opportunity to have his book on multiple local as well as international bestsellers lists? No, he's not. He's going to be happy. He's going to be happy, and he won't think twice about cutting you a check for $200,000, $300,000, etc. Why? Because he knows he will treble that value. He will 3x it, he will 4x it in business opportunities, in brand extension awareness, and in derivative business. It's very simple. Okay, this is an investment for these guys. And look at the bottom of this. What do you have here? Now, when this is a screen grab. The company, by the way, is out of business. They had to go deep underground. They're underground. But the website, this is simply a screen capture of the website that I had from one of my other projects. But the point I'm trying to make, when this site was live and active, you could scroll this for a long time, and you would recognize probably some of your favorite business books if you are into learning constantly, which you should be. At the end of the day, this is $1 million right here. 3 books in recurring activation fees, service fees, 3 books, $1 million. And again, this was a constant scroll of high quality businesses supported by publishing houses, supported by entrepreneurs that were well funded, because they understand that in order to become an apex business professional in your niche, you have to have ad spend to market yourself in order to compete. Okay, that's the thing that you have to have in mind as a VIP SEO practitioner. You cannot be afraid to let the prospect understand that they require money and investment in order to produce yield. If you don't do that, you will always fail because you are unable to move the needle in a meaningful way for people. Now, at the bottom of this, you don't see, for example, the buy, sell, trade, black hat, best-selling ebooks from this forum or any other forum for that matter. That's not what you see here. These are very well-regarded books, authors supported by publishing houses that spend money to deliver yield for their authors, partners, clients, and all that stuff. Now, when this site was up, I do recall one of the cool things I liked about it was when you clicked on one of the primary links, they had a huge stack of print materials. And I say that because I spent a lot of time talking to people about the inability for you to sell a 6-digit or 7-digit product or agency deal absent a print component. It's just very hard to do. I've never seen it happen, and I'd love to hear from someone who sold a 6-digit or 7-digit deal absent some sort of integrated print component. It's just it's abnormal. Okay, that's the word I'm looking for. Abnormal. Anyway, a good way, for example, just to give you a clear example, what I mean by how do you value ladder up an SEO client into this. Again, this was one of my favorite value ladders. I'll explain why. Now, let's say, for example, you've got a client on the hook for $2,000-$3,000 per month, and make no mistake, if someone is paying you $2,000-$3,000 a month, it is because it cost justifies itself. So you pick up the phone, have a quick conversation, say, "Hey, Mr. Prospect, we've had a great business relationship. You're earning money. You know, I have a great opportunity that you might be a perfect fit for. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever considered writing a book before?" They're probably going to say yes, but they don't have time. Or they could say, "Wow, that sounds interesting. I've never given it much thought, but let me know what's on your mind." So then you have the conversation. You can handle the conversation one or two ways. If the person tells you that they are too busy, but they've thought about it, you can either walk away and say, "Okay, well, when things slow down, give me a call, and we can talk about this because I think this is a good opportunity for you to fortify your brand. It's an amazing brand extension tool, blah, blah, blah." I would not function that way, okay? Because to me, it's not a good way to manage that conversation. If I had a person that told me, which is typically what you're going to experience, is someone telling you that, yes, it's crossed their mind, but they don't have the time to do it, okay? And that's what you want. And the reason why you want it is because it's a great segue into an upsell, a cross-sell rather, technically speaking, a cross-sell. You say, "Hey, don't worry, I've got plenty of clients who are in a similar situation. My job, as you know, is to keep you busy with our statements of work, so I understand that you don't have time. But guess what? I've got one of the best ghost writers in this subject matter who can make this a reality for you. It's a collaboration. They've done this before. What do you say? What say ye?" Okay? That's a good way to have a conversation. Okay? And when you function on that frequency, this is an easy $50,000, $30,000 cross-sell. I've had situations where you're selling a ghostwriting service for $30,000, $35,000, but you outsource it for $7,000, $8,000. Okay? This is the way you do it. This is the way you produce revenue. This kills your competition. It puts your client into a different league of business operations. Again, it's a brand extension tool. There will be derivative business from this entire process, and you're putting them in the light that they aspire to. Oftentimes, you'll also have people that'll tell you, "Hey, I've been writing. It's taken years for me to write a book," and you say, "No problem. We're going to connect you with this ghostwriter, and we're talking 3-4 months tops, okay? And you've got the whole model and the book, ready to go, ready to rock and roll and promote." And again, that's just phase one. There's different levels. You could be at a 50,000, and again, all ghostwriters aren't the same. Different ghostwriters produce different results, have different networks, connections, value ranges. So I'm giving you a framework for discovery and execution. I'm not giving this step by step. It would take too long for this. I mean, in my opinion, this company basically, as I said, they've gone underground. The article was put out in 2013 by the Forbes as well as Wall Street Journal and their syndication partners. It's not that it was black hat. It's just that the public didn't like it. It's bad optics. It's not that there was nothing wrong with it. I tease by referring to it as black hat. I mean, technically it's black hat, but to me it's no different than, the way politicians organize lobbying engagements. It's just the way it works. Certain things are just not public aware friendly. So that's why the business is no longer around and that sort of thing. Because, the first rule of the Fight Club is you don't talk about the Fight Club. Okay, so that's my micro rant about why people that have great business, income producing processes and techniques don't openly reveal it. Now, the company just made a mistake because, again, there's nothing that they were doing that was wrong. It was just aggressive business practices. Technically speaking, what they were doing, they were violating the publisher's terms of services for who ends up on the bestsellers list by managing spend. That's all they were doing. And again, that was one of my favorite cross sells. It rocks and rolls. And this is what your life could look like, even with the pink shorts. It could look like that. It takes telecom, computer, and there you go, multi-currency, all that stuff. There you go. It's just not U.S. dollars. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it could be. Now, let me wrap this up. Okay, here we go. This is basically a real-world view of what a 6-digit insertion order SEO. This is a VIP SEO full stack marketing engagement. Now, of course, I pixelated the essentials. But this is what it looks like. Okay, so keep that in mind and all that stuff. All right, let me get out of here. I'm getting hungry. Again, that's just a reminder that nothing gets done in the big leagues without print. Blah blah blah. You can believe me or not, but trust me. And for all my spammers out there who just can't. That is my spammer kill switch. Okay, that is my Gatling gun for the spammers. So I've got a guy that I'm in touch with, and routinely he's sending 3, 4, 500,000 emails during the weekends, and he is not producing success in sales. Okay, so here's the reality. That is not to say that people that spam, bulk spam, don't earn money. That is not the case. God bless you and all that stuff. If that's what you're doing, good for you. But if you're trying to model some of what I put out there as content, as it relates to VIP SEO or full stack marketing services, spamming is just not the way to go. These are real world efficiencies. You're sending less than 50 targeted emails. You had a conversation maybe with 16 gatekeepers. You produced 2 sales within 10 days. This deal I remember exactly because the emails were dispatched on a Sunday. The first sale was conducted on Monday. The cross sell to this prospect occurred on the second week, and it ended up being a 2-year deal at 144 per year. Okay, this is what efficient. Now, of course, this is on the high end of the spectrum, and the margins are indicated. Sometimes you're over 20%. Depends on what you're selling. Depends on your media bundle. You could get as high as 35% on these commission rates if you have a good way of outsourcing certain deliverables. Okay, so these are all math, and that's a conversation for another day. So let me get out of here. One thing I want to reiterate To the people that are communicating with me that are struggling with lower ticket deals and who are not understanding that if you're chasing nickel and dime clients in local markets constantly, just like everybody else, and now it's just worse because of COVID, because a ton of gurus have sold a ton of courses to everyone who's out of work, and the only thing that's happened is the market has been cannibalized and flooded, and it's very hard to get a leg up in this space at a local level, especially if you don't have any sort of extraordinary products or services. So I met a guy a few years back. He's always say this. He's always say it's impossible to rise up from low expectations. One of the things I want you to consider when you read my threads is the fact that there are over 10 million people, prospects, high-income professionals globally, just within one niche that I prefer, which everyone knows is the medical economy, the medical niche. But you've got real estate, you've got law, you've got banking and finance. There are even certain sectors within the hotel and hospitality space that you can earn from today if you have valuable products and services, media products and services in particular, to help them grow their businesses. Okay, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to play with my new gadgets and to give you this bit of information. Take care. Goodbye.